All right. Welcome, YouTube family and folks and friends out there. This is Halfling Wizard coming at you again. I have a special guest once again, Lisa Martin, who plays Jade Luna in my Temporal campaign and is also a partner character in a 5e campaign that we are in as players together. Today we're gonna actually, this is gonna be sort of a generalized topics type of discussion. It's going to be sort of a hodgepodge, I think, on this one. We're going to talk about numerous things. One thing I do want to say, and I meant to talk about this when I was interviewing you the last time, is I wanted to actually, I guess praise, I guess is the word, or that, or whatever the word it would be. But when you did that one-off dungeon crawl, when you DM'd that one, remember that one where we had to pick the random characters, and that was super fun. A little background, we did a one-off, and we were kind of like, everyone in our group was sort of swapping DM positions, and we'd do one-offs between the 5e campaign. You guys were also in a Pathfinder campaign at that time too, so we were just sort of like lightening the load there.
We're trying to give our DM a break because he was like seriously burning out from just content.
Yeah, back to back. So Lisa came up with this really cool dungeon crawl, and where and I have to admit, if I had thought about it, I would have said, hey, you should totally bring your binder. She created this binder, and it's so organized, like random everythings, and it was fantastic. And we got to pick. We had to roll for random characters, and she may have it there, and we got a couple of minutes to familiarize ourselves with whatever character we got, and it was super fun. Then we got into this. She's got it. This big binder, and it's got character sheets and monsters and counters.
Yeah, maps and different rooms and what was in them, and it was. I don't know if you can see.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, it was super fun. And one of the great things I liked about it is we got to play. We had to play characters that were kind of like not at all what we would have played.
I literally printed out like 30 characters, and they had to blindly pick a number.
It was super fun, but we got in there, and it was a lot of fun. We had to get in and get out, and it was
all had to have quirks, They all, I made them all like take some weird personality trait. Like one character always wanted to go to the right, no matter what.
My character had to always speak in the third person.
Yep.
That was what was so funny about it. But the other thing about it is, and I was recently on TikTok, and there was a gentleman, he and I were commenting back and forth, but he was talking about making the experience like sort of special for your players. And he did what you did, is he made the little scrolls that you made. Remember that gave the announcement of the challenge. And so there was tactile. We could touch it, and we unfolded it, and it was really neat. And it was wrapped, I think, in ribbon, and it just really added something to it. And I always remember that, and I try to do that as well. Like especially when I'm in my classroom and I'm doing D&D in the classroom, I try to do a lot of that stuff. Kind of makes it feel a little bit more special. So anyway, but I just wanted to touch on that because I didn't get a chance to touch on it when we did the interview, and I just thought that was so neat because it kind of goes with what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
And that is some of our favorite moments in D&D. What is one of yours? I'll let you share one of yours, and I'll go back many, many years and share one of mine.
Oh wow, put me on the spot. One of my, there's a lot. I've had a lot of fun with this Temporal campaign, with that character. We finally, she's like Ari, but she's never gone through the finishing ritual. So we came up with a really cool thing that when there is actually a full moon, the day before, the day of the full moon, and the day after, that she would have bonuses. And I think the first day she was just very irritable about everything.
Yeah.
The day of the full moon, I got all these boosts and extra things I could do. And then the day after, it was kind of like she had a hangover. And that was fun. It's not like the full moon comes around in gameplay very often, but I had looked forward to that for a long time, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, your character is a lot of fun to play with as a DM, because there's so much there that I can sort of manipulate, really, because that's what DMs do. And it's harder for the other three, because one of our players, Russell, who plays our barbarian, basically, well, I mean, not basically, he does. He keeps his backstories very vague. So, and he does it so that the DM can just create whatever he wants with it. And it's a little more difficult for me to do that, mainly because I don't want to create his character for him. Right. Because as an actor, as a theater person, you never want to tell another actor how to do their character. And as the DM, I find it difficult to create scenarios around his backstory, because there's not a lot to it. I mean, there is it's meaty, don't get me wrong, but unlike, say, like Austin's character, his is much more detailed, a lot more nuances, and so there's a lot more for me to kind of play with there, without getting into that. Let me write your character for you. And now with our new Arson, I have to get a more backstory with that character, because she's basically brand new. But yeah, so as a DM, I like as much detail as possible.
Austin and I have a strong theater background, so that building that character is maybe a little easier for us.
That's true. I mean, that is true. And I think that's also, the funny thing is I think that's why in the 5e campaign that we're in, your character and my character kind of hit it off very well, because we developed two characters that made sense together. And not that the others didn't do that sort of thing, but I was talking with Austin, and I was like, my character and Lisa's character, we really kind of created this sort of bond together that's not present with the other characters. Not that my character Soren, he cares about everybody, but he's for some reason there's a connection, and it's because we created this really cool backstory that kind of connected the two of us together. So that was really neat. A really, really great moment for me in D&D was way back when I first got started. I was with a group and leveled up. We went all the way to level, oh God, I don't even know. I don't know if it was 20 back then or what, but it was the highest level you could get to. And I had mentioned in my interviews earlier before, is that Soren, my character in the 5e campaign, is the original character that I created way back in the day. And this was a super fun, the guy who was DMing our group was very creative. He was really big into storytelling, which I loved. And he got us, actually he didn't get us, we got ourselves into it, but into a underground sort of like mine, and we couldn't get out of it. Because my character didn't have dark vision, and only one of the 6 of our party had dark vision. Everybody else was blind as a bat. So we had to literally like hold on to each other's belt loops so we wouldn't lose each other in the dark. Because we didn't have anything to create fire with, so we couldn't create torches. We could nothing. We were literally in the dark through most of it. Oh my gosh. until we came into a big area that had like, luminescent algae and stuff. So then we could all see, but oh no, it was like the most terrifying thing ever, because we walked and walked and walked, and he let us walk and walk in the dark. And he would put little things out there, like you hear rustling along the wall, or you hear footsteps, or you hear that. And nothing ever happened until we got into this big room. But man, it scared the hell out of us. And so it was one of my favorites. And we ended up fighting some gigantic dragon. I think it was a big dragon, and we killed it. But it was super fun. He made it super fun. And and I've talked about it before about having that whimsy in there. He had a lot of whimsical little characters that would pop in and out, and there was actually, it's where I got the leprechaun from in that one, because he had a leprechaun that would pop in like every other session and would torment us basically. And so that's where I got that one from as well. So I got a lot from that old campaign, but that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
When I started, there was no home brewing. There were modules bought, and a lot of them were dungeon crawls.
Yeah,
and they were a lot of fun, and I kind of miss those. Where you're mapping it out along with the DM. As he's drawing it, you're drawing it on yours. So I always think it's fun if I ever, and Lord knows I'm not the best DM by any means, but when I do have to do it, I love trying to go back to that old dungeon crawl feel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. I mean,
nostalgic about that.
Oh yeah, back in the day, it was all dungeons. Hence why it's Dungeons and Dragons. It was, you didn't do a lot of outworld stuff. It was mostly like you find yourself in this dungeon, or you find yourself in this cavern, or there was a lot. It's really neat to see how it's evolved over the years. And
do you remember what the very first task you ever? I mean, everybody who's ever played, what is the very first task your party is given?
Oh, I don't know. I don't remember that.
Kill rats in somebody's basement.
Oh my God, how funny. Yep. Yeah, you're right. How hilarious. I didn't even remember that.
Yep, everybody.
That's funny. Oh my gosh. Your very first task, kill these rats. Oh my gosh. So yeah, and I will say though, and this will segue us into our next topic. Our DM was he was one of those people that prepared a lot. And whenever the party, when the six of us for the most part, we never ever did what he expected us to do. And he would try to get us back on track. He would try to push us back on track, and we never would. And it's just because you get caught up in it. And you're like, yeah, let's go do this. My character would do that. Well, yeah, and so you tend to derail a lot. And as a DM, I love that. And the reason I love that is because when you derail, at least this is my opinion, when you derail, that is letting your players take control. And I love that. I love that the characters, not the players, the characters are taking charge of themselves. And yeah, you'll go off the rail because it's unpredictable at that point. And you guys in my temporal campaign, y'all do that to me every day, which is great, and I love it. And I'm pretty good, I think, thinking up things up on the fly. You guys go right instead of left, so I'm like, well, okay, like the one thing we talked about in one of the more recent encounters in that campaign is when you guys were around Eglinton Castle and it was on fire, and y'all had popped in the past and then came back to the present. And there was a town down the river, and everyone was like, yeah, we can just walk to this town. And I'm like, as the DM, I'm just like, would you look around before you do that? So finally I had to say, hey, you might want to look around a little bit before you go.
Oh.
You look to your right, you'll see a boat down by the river.
And we still argued about whether to take the boat or not.
That's true. You guys, honestly, I thought you guys were going to walk. I really did. And because it's I think it's the nature of this campaign, as we were talking about this also, is that you don't really trust me.
Well, we have assassins following us. You know, they're trying to kill us. So when you give us a house, come back to that, the party's gifted this great house, and our first thought is, oh my God, this is a trap. We got to get out of here. He literally, in the campaign, some people we thought had died in the castle. We found out in the last session that they survived somehow. And I found them. They were people I had a connection to. And I told Will earlier, I said, and I actually considered the fact that these are pod people, that we're not really the people we think they are. It's all a trap. And that's how paranoid we've gotten with these assassins chasing us everywhere. It's like, who do you trust?
Yes, for those who haven't watched the previous videos in my temporal campaign, the Gods of Orlea, my party is being hunted by a band of assassins that can shadow walk. They're called the Dark Hand, and they are agents of a dark being who the assassins have sort of singular vision. Once they're given a job, they do nothing except that. So once a target's been acquired, they will not rest until that target's taken out. So they have this huge band of assassins everywhere. I think in the last 2 towns, you've encountered them.
Yeah.
You guys encountered them in our recent endeavor.
We'll hear the twang of a bowstring. Someone will get hit with an arrow, and it's like,
Yep. Oh, dang it. And they have shadow poison, which can't be cured with not greater healing. Well, yeah, and potions can't heal it. It has to be done with greater restoration. So it's crazy. So they don't really trust me anymore, which is great.
You're talking about how we always kind of go off in a direction you didn't intend. So how many times have we missed important things, or have you had to figure another way to get it back to us?
A lot, actually. And I've had to find creative ways to put the clues somewhere else. One of the big ones that no one caught was when you guys went to the Old West, and it was the Onwells.
Yes.
It wasn't you, it was Austin, because it was Sophie Onwell back in Arcadia that he cured. And then y'all went to the Old West, or it was vice versa. I think y'all went to the Old West first. Then you found her, and you met the Commodore Onwell in the future, which was 500 years from where you were. And then when you guys came back, and he is the one that cured Sophie Onwell, and he didn't put 2 and 2 together, the names, because he didn't write them down as what it was. He's like, he admitted to me later, he's like, I didn't write it down. So yeah, I was like, yeah.
Hoyland Onwell, who's trying to apparently kill my character, and I'm dating his brother.
Yeah.
So it's like, who are these people? They're everywhere, and how are they all connected?
Yeah. This is this temporal campaign it's a complex thing. I mean, it's far more complex than I thought it was going to be, but not in a bad way. It's created some really fun moments, because all these characters that you met Commodore Onwell in the future. You've met Reimer, who your character sort of has a romantic tie with, and you find out Coylin, who's his brother, who was cursed and is now after you to kill you. And then you had a recent temporal excursion to the Stone Circle, where you met more of what I believe, or what you might believe, is your relatives. I'm
like, how are we related? Of course, they won't tell me. because that might change the future.
So it's crazy. I mean, and the also the whole arson thing, that was sort of a off the rails type of thing. And this is another thing, and I'll say to DMs out there, that if you have players who you can feel are not in a really great place with a character that they've built, and I was getting that impression from this player, and so I reached out to her and I told her, I was like, hey, if you could play any other class, what would it be? And she told me, and I was like, cool. Now I was like, I need you to make a level, whatever level your character was at the time. I need you to make a version of arson as a blood hunter. And then I basically found a way for her to change characters. Basically, it's the same character, she's just a different class.
Right.
And so I think it's important. DMs need to be aware of their players that way, because you can feel it when a player's not into what they're doing. Whether they picked it because they're like, oh, I want to pick something, that I don't normally play.
Yeah.
And then they get into it and they're like, oh, I see why I don't play this. And then they just start not having fun. And you can feel it. It kind of brings the energy down. Not intentionally, it just sort of happens. So that's, derailment is okay. I think sometimes DMs, like my old DM that I was talking about earlier, I mean, you would think he was going to have an aneurysm. He would turn red. He would get so mad at us because we would just go.
I think my favorite story way back when dungeon crawling, when I was DMing, my party they had these little tunnels that just and they went nowhere. They meant nothing. And my party insisted on exploring these tunnels. And I dropped every hint in the world that, just like hearing things behind them, or I go back.
I know.
They knew there was something there. And literally they spent like an entire session crawling through these tunnels. And finally I couldn't stand it. And I let them find a scroll. And when they opened it up, they went, oh, this is what we've been looking for. And they opened it up and I had it say, you're going the wrong way. Like, oh my God, you're killing me.
That's fantastic. Oh my God, I love that. Well, and as I mentioned earlier, Lisa and I are also players in a 5e campaign. That's pretty epic as well. And there was a time, and the whole group was in complete agreement. There was a point that campaign went off the rails pretty heavily. We ended up in basically the New York City of the medieval period, and we got. And then when we went in here, I will have to say this. I did say this to everybody, and I said it. I was like, you know what? It's like every town we go into, we like destroy it, like from the inside out. I mean, we didn't intend to, but it just that seems to be what happens. Well, we get to this thing, and
bodies everywhere.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know. And it's like we get into this big monster of a city. And we immediately get involved in its politics. I mean, it's like it just sucked us right in. And there were some great moments I really loved a lot. That whole campaign I loved. But when we got into the political intrigue, it was cool at first, but then I think we all kind of got lost in that town. And that's when it kind of went off the rails. And then that's when the DM basically was like, all right, that chapter is over. I was Austin. He was telling me, he's like, yeah, I kind of look at that whole Bargain Czar thing as its own campaign. And we kind of ended that campaign. And then we started a brand new one. And I was like, yeah, I mean, basically that's what we did. And we're out on the open road now we're heading east. And there's a lot more fun to be had, I think, out on the road. I think we just got in a rut in the town, and Which I could see. I mean, because I could see even in my campaign when you guys were in Arcadia, I could see things starting to get like that. And I was like, okay, I need to get you guys
Yeah.
out. But you guys did it on your own. So I was like, yay. Because I gave y'all the house. And then I was like, there was going to be one more big fight. And then I was going to get you guys out. And then you guys got out anyway. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'll just put all the bad guys you were going to fight down inside the secret tunnels. Oh, and that was a fun one too. And I know you could talk about this one. It was the one where you had to speak your truth.
Oh God. Yes, there was some kind of force field-ish thing at the bottom of the staircase, and in order to go up, we were told we had to speak our truth, which was a dice roll. And I just could not roll the dice. So I'm like blurting out everything, every secret about my character that there possibly is. Like, what truth does he want?
Oh my God, it was so funny.
It went on forever. Everyone else goes up the stairs and I sit there, I didn't get along with my father. That's the truth. Let me through.
And was it you that got sent back? Or who was it got sent back to the beginning?
That was us. We went through the wrong mirror.
Was it everybody that went? Because I couldn't remember. Did everybody? That's
Us.
right. Because they were like, "Oh yeah, let's go through this one," and you're supposed to go through the opposite.
Yeah.
That's what it was, and you ended up right back down at the thing, and you
had to do the same.
Speak your truth over again.
Thanks, Will. Was that you?
You're welcome. That was a lot of fun. That was fun.
I have some questions for you, actually.
Okay.
Oh, my mind just went blank too. Oh, people play the game for different reasons and enjoy different aspects of it. And I always had trouble balancing that. We have one player that I perceive to really enjoy the combat aspect. To not so much, I mean, yeah, he does do the character work and the the role playing part of it, but there's some of us that really thrive on the role playing part of it. And that was always really difficult for me to balance, how to keep, because you want everyone to have fun and everyone to be happy, but you can't do all combat and you can't do all role playing. And I mean, how do you plan ahead for that to make sure everyone gets to do what they enjoy?
Well, it's the funny thing about it is it's one of those things where you really need to know. Oh, that sounds condescending. I think you just need to understand your players and their characters, like what their characters are after. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, I know that like what Austin's character's after, and that's to get his brother back on the throne. We know what I know what you're after. We know what Arson's after. Osric is a little vague, but I mean, I think his is sort of to not go back to the throne. and I know that, and I know everything. Like, for instance, like for you, Lisa, I know that you like both. You like the story. You like the story character work. You like the storytelling aspect of it. But I know you like to fight, too. I know you like to get in there and get your hands dirty. So I always look at what the character or what the character player, what their wants are. Like, I know Russell wants to fight. Now, I will say that in my campaign, he has been doing a whole lot more like character story stuff.
Yes, he has.
And so what I basically do is I plan out a session to where there's going to be either equal parts of both, or, like it'll be a little bit of storytelling, character work, and a small fight, and then more character work, and then another small fight, and then character work, and then a big fight. Or I'll do a lot of story, big fight, a lot of story, or a little bit of story at the end. And it really is. I will go and I will do story character work until I feel the energy in the party.
Okay.
The minute you feel that energy shift, it's time to fight something. And you can you can feel it, because I can feel you guys when you're basically done with story work. And because like I can feel when you're like, okay, I'm ready to like hit something, I'm ready to like punch something, kill something. So I'm like, okay, so it's time to fight something. So that's when and that's one of the reasons I have the dark hands, is because there I can insert them anywhere.
Yeah, and you do. Thank you.
Yeah, so that way you guys, and and also because like your character just got a brand new weapon, the
Mm-hmm.
Moonblade, and so I want to give you. So I will give you opportunity, knowing that you have a brand new weapon. I will give you opportunities to use that weapon.
Right.
So it's like, okay, you just got this cool new sword. So obviously you're about to fight something, because I want you to fight with it. I want you to play with it. It was the same way when Russell got his Dwarven Lords, Axe of the Dwarven Lords. The minute he got it, I gave him something to fight with it.
Right.
So it's just a matter of. And the funny thing is, I will say that's the one great thing that you guys do, is I let you guys lead me in storytelling. So I'll tell the story until you guys stop leading me, and then it's time to fight. So I will storytell until you guys are ready to like rumble with somebody, and so. And then there are some sessions where I'm like, I want to focus on each individual character, give them something in this session that's just for them. And
one thing I really like that you do is that you're probably the only DM I've ever played with that is not worried about splitting the party.
Oh no. Yeah.
We'll get into a town and we'll all go the cleric go to the temple, so and so is going to the bar, so and so is going shopping or whatever. And you separate it out, and of course D20, which is the platform we're using right now, has this ability where you can whisper to or block. I don't know how that works. I've never been on your end of that control, but you can kind of gray out everyone else.
Yep.
And that makes it really. I've had DMs that were like, "Oh no, you really want to split the party? You really want to split up?" Yes, I don't want to be with these people 24 hours a day. Nobody will.
Yeah. Well, see, that's why I do. I do. Well, I don't do it. I let you guys do it, because that's what you would naturally do.
Right.
I mean, like, you guys have Baril with you. I mean, he's gonna go and drink. That's what he's gonna do. I mean, no matter what. The minute you walk into town, he's like, "Where's the nearest pub?"
Right.
And so he's like, "I'll see y'all later," and he's off he goes. And usually Osric will go with him. So, for the most part, you're never alone. So every once in a while, like, you'll go shopping, Arson will go shopping. Usually Rohir goes to a temple or something. But for the most part, you guys tend to either pair off or you go in, some sort of smaller group. So, but I let that's part of the storytelling aspect of it, is that, I want to see I want to look into the personal lives of these characters. Like, what do they do when they're not with everybody else?
Right. And that makes it fun. It makes it, again, it kind of makes you own it a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And then you experience things that you couldn't experience if you were like in the party. Like this, for instance, the whole meeting of Reimer. I mean, imagine would that have happened if everybody was around you? I mean, it's sort of like if he hadn't seen you there reading a book, or if he had seen you standing there with like the others, would he have approached you? I mean, those are questions, but I think that there's sometimes that characters need to be by themselves. They need to go off. They need to do what they would normally do if they were to walk into this town. If your character's big into weaponry, what are you going to do? First thing you're going to do is go find a weapons store. I mean, that's what you're going to do. It's like, hey guys, I'll see y'all later. Maybe you will all go and check in at the inn, and then go your separate ways. That's great. I know I know how to get you all back together. So I'm not worried about you guys spreading out all over town, because all I have to do is place a specific item or specific words, a little, words from Omnor, to Rohir, and then next thing I know, he's like, oh gosh, I got to find everybody, and then there you all are back together again. So it's going to be very rare that there's going to be a solo attack. I mean, it's very rare. I mean, maybe, well, that's true. I mean, you did have a solo attack, and but it's usually very rare. Usually it's only if it's to push the story forward. I don't just, because that's the other thing, is I don't just throw random encounters at you.
Right.
Because I think that's just here, let me try to get you some XP. I mean, and I know that there are players out there that's what they want. They want all that XP. They want as many experience points as they can get.
Right.
And that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. But in my campaign, I'm not going to throw something at you unless it has to do with the story.
Unless it's advancing the story. I like
right.
that.
So you're not going to have a fight with a random pickpocket on the street unless that pickpocket is there for a specific reason. So yeah, so that is what keeps it, I think, pretty well balanced, is that I let you guys go and be you, and then I'll fill it in with whatever needs to be filled in, and then I find the ways to bring you all back together and fight some big whatever. So I don't worry about it. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, never split the party. I'm like, well, that's because you're in a campaign where the DM, all they want to do is throw random fights at you. Again, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I'm more into and I think it also has to do with, ownership. I mean, I've built this world from the ground up. And then I let you guys, take those countries that you took or those provinces, and I let you create their lore. And that was so that you would have some sort of ownership in this campaign, in this world. And your character, I think, well, now Rohir and Osric as well, because they had their big haha moment, that, oh, if we don't do this, the world could be a really bad place. So right. And so I'm like, split up, go do whatever you're going to do. Don't worry about it. I'll get you back together when I need you to be back together. Go and be, Jade Luna. Go. What would she do? And I think that was one of the fun things at the beginning, before Jade Luna could read, is she was very self-conscious, and I don't think we never really saw Jade Luna, like who she really was, because she was always putting a front up, because she didn't want people to know she couldn't read, and that sort of thing. So I want these characters to go and just be themselves. And like I said, Roll20 has that great function about where you can whisper. So I can send you off on your own, like we did in this last encounter. You went off looking for these three men. And so you and I could whisper this, you and I, so you and I could have that. That could be, it's very personal. It's what's happening to you. And the same thing I did with Rohir. This is what was happening to him. So it was all personal, as opposed to, and it's a lot harder when you're like face to face, because when you're around a table, everyone hears what's going on.
And you have player knowledge, character knowledge. It's hard not to let that influence.
It really is. And I love the Roll20, because you can separate the two.
Right.
And unless it's unless it's a big party announcement where everybody needs to know, but with that whisper function, two of you go off together. I can whisper the two of you and just talk to the two of you while you're doing your thing, and the other characters have no clue what's going on. And then you guys can come back into the party and you can tell them, hey, this is what just happened,
right,
as opposed to me telling everything. And because again, it gives you, I think it gives players a sense of ownership. They're like, hey, I know this, you don't. See, in a tabletop setting, you would all already know this.
Right.
And it tends to be
people, and that it's
and even as a player myself, whenever we would be sitting around the table during our 5e contest or contest, campaign, and the DM would say stuff. Oh, you found this, and I'm thinking, well, I know you just found that, and it's so hard to switch between, and it's hard to now. I don't necessarily find it that difficult to separate player from character, but a lot of people do. That, like, oh, I know you have that, so it has already influenced what I'm going to do. And see, I usually say, in my mind, I usually go, what's the opposite of that then? Because that's probably what my character would do. So it's like, oh, that. Oh, I'm going to go here and pick up this porcupine, as opposed to what you got going on, because I don't know anything about it. So I like that function in Roll20 because it does kind of gives you ownership, and you get to share that information, and which I think is a huge part of it. I mean, it's me, instead of the DM saying, "Well, you found this thing," to everybody, and as opposed to you coming into the group going, "Oh my God, guys, guess what I found?" And they're like, "What?" So the reactions are a lot more realistic, I think, that way.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it's hard because we've had some sessions in my campaign where we did nothing but character stuff, and that was not my intention. But if you guys, like I said, I let you guys do it. I let you guys build and do your character stuff, and the moment I feel that it's starting to turn, that's when I usually put combat in there. But there was a couple of times where you guys just went, and I let you go, and it was great. Did a lot of character building. So yeah.
I think this last session, my character and the cleric Rogier were we got into this deep philosophical conversation, and we were actually whispering back and forth on the chat between ourselves, carrying on this deep conversation to the exclusion of, like, when things were happening, we were like, well, would we be paying attention? No, we're like deep in conversation.
Yeah.
And we just carried that through, and it was really kind of neat.
Oh yeah, and it was great. I mean, it was great because I was like, well, what are you guys doing? And you're like, wait, what? What's going on? It's like we're in our own little world over here. I was like, oh, that's great. That's awesome. So I love that, and I encourage it because and like I said, there's no formula. I don't think there's a formula for you to use where you can balance it out. I mean, it's just going to be, DMs just have to know their players. You have to know their energy. You have to feel their energy. You have to be like, okay, I can sense in the force that there's a disturbance. So then it's like, okay, let me throw some bad guys at you. So yeah, or some sort of something happens. But yeah, so I mean, I don't necessarily think it's, and I want to say, I don't think that's something that a DM should focus on. Mm-hmm. Because I think that's what's going to get you in trouble, is when you're like, how can I balance this out? And then you start formulating, and it's just, you got to just gotta let it happen. Mm-hmm. Keep feelers on your players and know when they're ready to fight something. That's right. The long answer, I guess.
No, that was helpful, because I always had trouble balancing that.
Makes sense. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it is hard to do. But I think once you get into a groove and a rhythm with your players, I think it becomes easier. Because originally when I first started, that was my whole philosophy. It was like, okay, I need to balance them out. It needs to be storytelling and combat need to be equal. And later on I realized that doesn't have to happen. I mean, it could be, you guys could be fighting 4 different types of monsters and then have a little bit of role play at the end. But that little bit of role play at the end should be heavy enough to balance out the combat you just had.
Right.
So it can't just be, oh, we fought all these monsters and then there was no reason for it, or why did we go through all that? What did we get out of it? Well, it's like, other than XP.
We're really starting to kind of carry that role playing into the combat, which is great. It's not just, this is what my skills are and this is what I can do. Rogier, the cleric, is always keeping an eye on his brother, his safety.
Yep.
what is happening over here. I mean, so there's, I mean, as an example.
No, I
So
agree with you. I totally agree.
our reactions to things over. So
And I
that's
think that's because your characters have been through so much together. And I mean that in a serious way. You know, most people think, oh, they're just characters. Come on. No, I mean, seriously, these four characters have been through so much crap. I mean, literally, they've got gods trying to destroy them. I mean, it's like these gods are throwing everything they've got at you. And I think that because they've sort of gone through all this, the players have created that sort of bond with the characters. Because I mean, with Soren in the 5e, I mean, I'm very much like, I mean, he's been through a lot in that little bit that time we've been. So he's sort of, that's why I wanted him to form a bond with your character, because I think he would find someone in the party that, one, who could probably protect him, because he's only 3 feet tall. He's a wizard. I mean, you could blow on him hard enough and he'd probably die. So I mean, he needs that.
He's got a mean quarterstaff, y'all.
Well, that's true. He does. And he also with Orlis. Orlis is the one that's always carrying him. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I get carried a lot. Because I'm the only one in our party that doesn't have dark vision.
You can't run very fast.
No, and I can't run very fast. So, and I have actually told Orlis to toss me across things before. So, yeah. So, but because of all those happenings, I think that's because originally I remember that, it was Nowhere. We didn't trust her.
Oh, right.
Remember, as characters, we didn't trust her. And then eventually we did. I mean, that kind of went away because of all the crap we had been through together. So it kind of brought us closer together. And I think that's what you guys have done in my campaign, is because these characters have been through so much and they've shared so much.
Right.
They've shared so much with each other that, I mean, you how can you not get close? And it is.
That leads me, circles around to my other question, if we have time. I don't know where we're at.
Yeah, we have time.
Which is how to introduce the party to each other. I've seen it done so many ways, and it's like, oh, you all just happen to meet in a bar, or you happen to see a notice on a board somewhere saying "Adventurers Wanted," and then there's some DMs that just like, well, you've been traveling together, you know each other. And to me, that's harder because you don't know them. But just that whole how to introduce, when you're starting.
Right. Well,
DMs on how to start it.
I think that is going to depend on what type of campaign you're running.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like for my temporal campaign, I mean, you guys were forced together.
Right.
You were. There's no two ways about it. You were literally, the gods chose you and said, you're working together whether you like it or not. And then they basically connected you all.
You can't separate very far.
You can't separate each other. You can't separate in the past and the future. You have to stay together. And
thank God, nobody's had like this serious falling out. We're not done.
Yeah.
Why I'm not? I can't go.
Yeah, I know. I'm like so stuck with you. But what I did for you guys to start getting to know each other was the very first fight you guys had. There's nothing that brings a party together like fighting, I think. And you guys remember you fought the scarecrows?
Oh, yeah.
It was the very first monster you guys ever fought, were those scarecrows. Because you guys woke up, the characters woke up in like little rooms. They were like little rooms. And they were, each of you were visited by someone, I believe. It's been so long. But then you guys came into a larger room where you were met by a priestess. You were fed. Then you were escorted into this gigantic sort of hall room with columns and things. And that's where the gods spoke to you and basically sent you on this short quest, which was to go to find Tempest.
Right.
And then you guys were going out, and then the very first monster, and I said, okay, now it's time to get these guys to work together. And that's when you guys fought the scarecrows. And then and the way I do it is I do it the natural way, is I let you guys introduce yourselves naturally. You get to know each other naturally. And that's what you guys are doing in the first fight. You basically all learned what you each could do.
Right.
And then I just let you guys sort of like expose yourselves to one another at your own pace, basically. So if you felt you needed to do it right away, then you did it right away. If you felt, oh, I'm going to just little snippets here, snippet there until later, until I really get to know you, I trust you a little bit more.
Yeah, I hid the Lothari thing for a long time.
Yeah, you did. And that was great. And I think that was great. And we had talked about that. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I think you should hide it as long as you need, because I think it's something that she's afraid of. And not necessarily it, but the way people would react to it.
Exactly.
So I think it's gonna, like I said though, I think it's just gonna depend, because I've worked with DMs who are very much like, okay, let's go around the table and tell everybody about who we are, and that sort of thing. And I'm like, well, okay, that's cool if you want to do it that way. But I think the best way for characters to get to know each other is by doing. And the very first fight.
Oh, you froze.
Oh, did I? Am I there now? Oh no. Am I still here? Can you hear me? Ooh. Oh, you froze. No. Okay, sorry, we had a little bit of a technical hiccup there. As we were saying, I think it's going to depend on the DM, but I think that I personally believe that the best way to introduce characters to each other is to make them fight something together, and let your characters reveal who they are on their own terms.
Right.
I mean, like I said, you can do the whole go around the table and say who you are, what you look like, and and what all that, but. And to me that just is like, that's player serving as opposed to character serving, because nothing beats getting to know each other, like fighting something and then sitting around a table drinking a beer. I mean, agree. Seriously. And then a lot of times that's what you guys did, is that you guys would fight these sort of monsters, and then you would sit around and talk about stuff. And I personally, as a DM, I think that's the way you should do it. I don't think we necessarily need to know everything about your character at the very beginning. And honestly and truly, I think sometimes it hurts the game, because if you give away everything at the beginning, then why do I care to find out anything about you?
Right. And in real life, you don't overshare with strangers.
No, not at all.
Once you get to know them, you might.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So I think that's, to me, I think that you need to let characters get to know each other naturally. Because the whole going around the table, and I just think it tells you too much, and it's like, well, okay. Now, I mean, if it starts out like you guys have been traveling together for 3 years, then I'd be like, okay, we should probably tell each other about who we are, or that. But if it's like you guys just meet in a tavern,
well,
okay.
Even the brothers, they're brothers, but they had been estranged. They had been traveling together, so it was almost like they were meeting anew and figuring out who they were in their lives now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rohir had to basically get to know his brother all over again. And they did it, and you guys did it in a progression, which I think is great. You know, we didn't know everything about Rohir.
No.
Like at the beginning, we didn't know everything about Osric. We didn't know anything about Arson or you. I mean, like I said, you kept the Lotharia secret for a long time. I mean, for the most part, you kept your past kind of quiet, you know, and so did Rohir. Rohir kind of kept his to himself as well. So, and then eventually, once the characters started trusting each other, then they started to tell each other who they were and what they did and things like that. And I also, and like for you, for instance, your character was the very first character we ever went back in time on. First time travel experience was on your character. And I think when we went there and we were in your village and we met these people that, you know, you knew your entire life basically, but they had no clue. And then suddenly you're walking into a space where you're like, I know everybody and you guys know nothing. So they were like, well, we should probably get to know her. I mean, it's moments like that where as a character, I'd be like, so tell me about this village you come from. You know, tell me about this, that, and the other. So I think I personally, I like the idea of doing it naturally. I like the idea of, you know, you meet each other on the road. Hi, my name is, and I'm coming from so-and-so. I mean, I wouldn't tell you anything other than that until, you know, we got to know each other. I'm not going to just sit there and spill my life history to you, because I don't know who you are. And so, yeah. But again, like I said, every DM is going to do it differently. And I suggest that DMs do it however that they feel their campaign needs it. I like not knowing everything about a character, like another character. I like the idea of getting to know them and learning things about them. So again, I mean, I think it's up to you as a DM to decide how you want your player or your characters to find out of each, you know, get to know each other, I guess. So, yeah. So again, there's no formula. You know, I wish there was, but there's not. I mean, for my campaign, the way I did it, it made sense.
Well, I wanted you to share it because it felt very organic, very.
Yeah.
It didn't feel forced.
Yeah, and for this campaign, it needed to be that. It had to be that because, again, here's 4 individuals that don't know each other. I mean, 2 of them do, but they don't really because they've been separated for so long. And you're sort of thrown into a situation that you have no control over. You don't know if you can trust these people that you're with.
We have established that none of us are very trusting of anybody.
Exactly. And
you gave us a house, it's a trap.
It's a trap. I know.
It's a odd person.
So yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, I think it's, you know, for this campaign, for my campaign, it needed to be organic because the whole campaign is organic. I mean, it's, like I said, the characters, I mean, this is truly the idea of destiny as your own, is that you guys are creating your own destiny.
Right.
So, and I needed it to be organic. I needed it to be character driven.
Now, do you have like a plot point where you know that eventually this has to happen, then this, then the end game? How mapped out?
I have it pretty mapped out for the most part. When I first put it together, to be honest, when I first put it together, I had a beginning and an end. And I knew that there were certain locations that you needed to get to.
I mean, did you have a plan that the castle would be destroyed when we got there?
No.
After we had, you know, for months, our whole goal is get to the castle.
Yep.
Like,
no. And originally, because, and it was based on decisions that your characters made that Eglinton was on fire.
Really?
Yes, that's why I say it's, you guys are literally shaping your own destinies.
Wow.
Every
What?
decision you make, I take all the choices that you make in a session, and I go, what would be the outcome of them being basically meddling in the affairs of the world, temporally, on a temporal
Oh,
level,
wow.
even,
Yeah.
what effects would it have? Well, that would be it,
How
you
much
know,
regret
because
are we becoming that
yeah,
they're
because originally you were supposed to get to Eglinton and meet Terral, and then Terral was going to tell you what you need to do next, and then I was like, well, all of that stuff you guys did in Arcadia, and then the stuff that you guys did between Arcadia and Eglinton, it all shaped what happened there.
wow.
And I think it's because if you think about it, you guys were defeated. You were defeating all the dark hands like crazy. I mean, some of them got away from you, and you basically destroyed all of the big baddies that the big bad has sent at you. So
Right.
that's going to cause ripples. So then therefore the big baddie is going to up their game and up the schedule of what they're doing. So they knew you were on your way to Eglinton, so they were like, we got to take Eglinton out. So
Wow.
all of that,
Interesting.
that's so literally everything between points. So from between Arcadia and Eglinton, I have nothing planned in there.
Wow.
I pick a series of big bads that you guys can fight, and I make them pertinent to the story that you create. So if you go and you create this thing, so the whole thing about the secret passageway and coming out of the house, I had none of that planned. I mean, and that's fine. Like I said, I love that, but I drew out the cool, the underground areas that you guys could walk through and all that. But the whole staircase going up and all that was all created on the fly.
That's awesome.
Because of the choices. Because you had two choices. There was the doorway to the room, and then there was the hallway that kept going. You guys went through the room. So I was like, okay. If you had gone down the hallway, who knows what would have happened?
Wow.
A whole different
That's
scenario could have happened.
fascinating. It's like the Wizard of Oz. You're pulling the curtain aside, like
yeah, who's behind the curtain? Yeah, I mean,
behind the curtain. What is he
yeah.
doing?
So I mean, and now you guys,
This.
and now we have you guys on a ship,
Mhm.
trying to get to Valmead, and I don't have anything planned there. I have your beginning point and your end point. Everything that will happen in between there is all up to you guys.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, I have my big bads. I was like, and I will pick big bads that are different things. So if like you go this way, I'm like, okay, these guys would be here. These guys would be here. These guys would be here. So
now we have more, yeah, we've never really had any experience on the water.
nope. Yeah, this is your first water experience.
I hope we can all swim. This should be interesting.
Yes, because spoiler alert, but you're gonna go into some pretty heavy weather soon.
Oh, great.
A lot more constitution saves.
Oh, yeah. Seasick.
Yep, to see who gets seasick. But yeah, so I mean, and I want it that way because I want it to be as organic as possible. Because like I said, because this campaign is about destiny, basically. I want you guys to create that. Every choice you make, because it is a temporal campaign. Every choice you make affects the choices ahead of you. Each step you take, complicates the next step because you change the terrain, or you step to a little bit more to the left than to the right, and every choice you make changes what happens in the future. So it's got to stay organic. And like I said, I know where you've just come from, which is the port city, and I know where you're supposed to end up. And everything whatever you guys do in between, that's on you guys. That's all character stuff. This is the first time on a sailing ship. Probably your first time ever sailing on the ocean.
Yeah.
probably Rohir's first time, probably not Osric and Arson, because Arson had to come across from the island.
Yeah.
So, and it's not Baril's first time on the ocean either. He's been on the ocean as well because he knew the town very well. So yeah, so all of these choices affect what's going to happen to you next.
I can't wait.
Yeah, because Eglinton wasn't supposed to be burning, but because of what you guys did, it was.
Just that in itself, that you didn't plan that was fascinating.
No, didn't plan it at all. Because originally you were supposed to get there, meet Taral, the Aasimar that lives there, and he was supposed to give you some stuff and then send you where you needed to go next. And then because of all the stuff, and and one of the great things about it is what happened in the past on Rohir and Osric's little trip backwards. I mean, had a huge effect on future events. See, remember when I first set all this up, everything that happens in the past either has an effect or doesn't have an effect. So it had an effect. And you could probably say that trip back in time is what caused Eglinton to be attacked, basically.
Wow.
And so, because originally, like I said, I had that whole trip to the past planned prior, and I was actually waiting for a moment to spring it on them, but this actually, it proved to be perfect at the point in which we did it. And so that's, again, remember the gods and the ancient beings are watching, and everything you guys do shapes what happens in front of you.
Good on you, Will.
Yeah, it gets complicated. Don't get me wrong. There are times I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do next? I was like, oh God. Okay, well, I wonder what's going to happen. You guys keep me on my toes. I'll give you that, because I never know what you're going to do. And so I try. It's one of those things I try to prepare as best as I can until you guys make the choices. I have no idea what you're going to do.
Well, I hope you're having as much fun with it as we are.
Oh, I am. I'm having a blast with it.
I look forward. I have a crazy busy life, but I look forward to those, those days when we get to play, because it's total escape and fun.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are moments when derailing can be awesome, and there's sometimes when derailing can be not so much. And I love that you guys derail me all the time. It's awesome. Because every once in a while, the funny thing is every once in a while you guys will do exactly what I think you're going to do, and so it's like, okay, so that was easy. And then for the most part, though, probably 9 out of 10 times you guys do the exact opposite of what I want you to do. I think, oh, they'll go do this, and it's like you guys, hey, I think we should go over here and do this, and it's just like, oh God, okay. Sure, you go down this road, and and I can take everything that I created for the initial encounter and rework it quickly and turn it into a different encounter.
When we go to a town and you turn us loose as a DM, okay, so Rogier is going to a temple. Well, then you've got to come up. You don't know that he's going to do that. You've got to come up with the temple, with the people in the temple, with what's going to happen in the temple.
Yep.
I'm going here to the bookseller to try and find a book.
Yep.
So then you've got to create that stall, that person.
Yep.
That's wow. That's fun.
Yeah. So when you guys go loose in the towns, that's where my improv skills come in handy. Because there's you'll go to multiple stalls looking at multiple things, and each stall has to have somebody different. And you go to a bookstore, you have to meet the guy in the book or the woman in the bookstore, and then you like one of yours. Probably yours is when you would go into the bookstores, and you would ask for specific books. So I'd have to come up with specific books and what those books had in them. So I mean I love that. I think it's great, and there's sometimes you guys stump me, and I'm sort of like, well, Uh,
And you say, all right, I'm going to go, I'll get back with you. I'm going to go check
Yep,
it out.
exactly. It's like, you're right there. Let me go talk to so and so real quick. And then while I'm talking to someone else, I'm like, oh, okay, I know what I need to do. So I'll come back to you and go, this is what it is. So yeah, it's it's all part of the fun. I have fun with it. I'm never, it's so funny is that I've played with DMs who just get so stressed out, and it's like, it doesn't really have to be stressful. I mean, it really doesn't. I mean, it's like and I've worked with some DMs who are super super detailed. I mean, like binders like you have with like, I mean, everything is tabbed and it's like exact. And I'm like, oh, your party's not going to go where you want them to go. It's like unless you force them to go there, and then I don't think it's any fun. Uh, but yeah, I had this one girl. I remember she was a DM. This was when I was at Sam Houston State, and she was so like organized like that. I mean, it was really cool. I was like, well, that's pretty, but it's gonna be useless in 5 minutes. Because the instant that it's like, okay, so you find yourself here, we're gonna go over here, and then all of a sudden she's like, no, I really think you guys should probably look over on this side. She would try to force us to go where she wanted us to go and like real human beings, we're gonna be like, hey, what's that in the corner over there? And it could just be a rock, but we're going like, let's go check that out. It's like, and she would just drive her crazy. And I told her, I was like, this is all pretty, but you got to and she would stress out so much, and she would look so exhausted. And I'm like, you don't have to do that. It's like, just let it flow. Have your big bad guys, the bad guys you want to use. Have a couple of like adjustable encounters that if we don't go left, you can adjust a little bit for the right side. And I was like, you'll make your life so much easier. And I'm like, I give props to those people who have all those forms in their binders and that. And I have I've got like a little pad of paper with scribbling all over it. I mean, it's just, and that's what I do. And there are times that I'll be sitting there talking to you and I'll be scribbling on this paper because I'm like, okay, I need a name. Okay, what name can I use? And I'll make up the name and be writing it down while we're talking. I mean, it's like, sometimes you just got, and it doesn't stress me out at all. I'm totally relaxed and fine at the end of the game.
The
So
interesting thing is, in the other campaign where we're both players, our characters, because we're not the strongest in the party, we tend to try and find ways to avoid fights.
Yeah. Well, Soren especially. I mean, he's probably.
Can we just like duck down this alley and avoid this altogether? Which I'm sure the poor Austin being the DM is like, but.
Yeah, I know. Well, remember there were times where we're like, okay, we're going to be back here in the back with this like fire ring around us so that if we need to bolt, we can.
We always have an exit strategy.
Oh, always. I mean, my character is probably, out of all of them, is probably the weakest.
Right.
Because, I'm a halfling wizard. I mean, hello. Which is basically like a football. So, and there are times where I'm just like, okay, I'm going to hang out back here. I mean, I've got some pretty cool spells and I can throw those things. But at the beginning, it was like, oh gosh, you hit me once and I'm like halfway down. I mean, It's like you hit me twice, I'm out. I mean, it's like I'm gonna hang out back in the back. So yeah. And you're right. Our characters, we were probably there at the beginning. We were so like the weakest of the four. We were just like hit us 3 times and we're dead. I mean, it's like it was bad, and not so much now, but yeah. Oh goodness. And all my friends are like, "Don't be a wizard. Don't be a wizard." I'm like, no, I have to be a wizard because it's when you're building characters. Is another thing is when you're building a character. I'm always under the rule, not rule, rule's the wrong word, but I really want a player to create a better version of themselves and their characters, I guess. So like Soren is a better version of myself. At least I think he is.
I kind of see where you kind of put traits. You give your character traits that either you wish you had,
Yep.
or
Or you would wish you were better at.
yeah.
Yeah, I just think and the reason I do that is because, well, again, it gives me ownership. It gives me, like, it's me fighting, and this, I don't have that disconnect. Well, I do have the disconnect because I'm not psycho, but um, you have that ability to connect to the character on an emotional level, which allows you to play them better, I think.
Right.
So yeah, but again, everyone's going to do their thing, do it differently, and that's totally cool.
Yeah. It's just going to make just what you just said, and I know you have a live feed coming up on Friday.
Yes,
Am I
yes,
right?
on Friday.
You're talking about putting traits of yourself into the character, and then your topic. I'm like, I want to see what you got to say about that.
Oh yeah, yeah. We'll be on Friday, this Friday, which is September 4th, I believe, and it's at 6:00. I'll be doing a live stream, and we're going to be talking about evil versus intent. Are there really evil characters in DVD or DVD D&D, or do we create them ourselves?
Right.
Based on our choices.
That's really interesting. So I gotta definitely watch.
So yeah, definitely watch, participate. You can you can chat. I'll have the chat. So if you have questions, you can chat me questions, and that's it. I mean, probably won't be a very long live, but that's okay. I'm going to talk as much as I can, and until nobody wants to listen to me anymore. So, but yeah, it's going to be about evil versus intent. Are there evil characters, or just perceptions of them?
Right.
So yeah, so cool. Well, Lisa, thanks for joining me again. It was fun.
This is like an extended. We used, well, before we were all quarantined and separated, we would probably once a week try and get coffee or lunch and
just talk
theater projects we were both in, and this is just sort of an extension of that. So I love it.
Me too. And I would like to try and get the rest of the group in here and talk about some stuff too, and let them talk on their experiences, and just sort of I like these sort of round table. Let's just sit down and talk about some fun stuff that we love. So cool. So again, Lisa, thanks for joining me. Hopefully you guys will join me on Friday and talk about some evil characters or their intent. But until then, keep playing. Thanks for joining me.